What's up, guys? Welcome to G Whiskey. I'm Jeff. This is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey, and every once in a while throw in other whiskey-related content. Today, I want to do a list with you guys. I want to go over 5 Sherry Bomb whiskeys that are from the world whiskey scene. So it should be a fun one. Stick around. Alright, so we're doing a follow-up video this week. Last week, I put out a video about scotch whiskeys. It was under the radar Sherry Bombs. And I wanted to follow that up this week with more Sherry Bombs since we're covering the topic, I guess. And this time we're going to be focusing on world whiskeys. And here's the thing, anytime I do reviews or list videos or really any kind of video, I always ask for your feedback, your thoughts, your suggestions down below in the comments. And I know there's going to be a lot of cynics out there that are saying, oh, he's just doing that to feed the YouTube algorithm. And that's just not wrong. That's absolutely correct. However, I genuinely do appreciate the feedback that I get from a lot of you. That's not kidding, that's being sincere. But as many of you know, I'm pretty prolific as far as WhiskeyTube goes. I try and put out 2 videos a week. And yeah, I don't really have the luxury of spending countless hours researching what whiskeys I might put on a list. So I do kind of throw them together. And because of that, inevitably, you're going to have bottles that get left out. And so that's where you guys come in. I love seeing what you guys think I missed or what you think I should include on the next list. That's super useful. And it's not just the case where maybe I forgot to include it. There's plenty of whiskeys out there that I just haven't tried, and you guys will recommend stuff. And then, you know, I'll make a mental note of it and be like, oh, I should be on the lookout for that one if I come across it next time. So yeah, I mean, you guys always give super good recommendations. And by always, I mean sometimes. Most of the time. Regardless, thank you. Anyway, all of this is to say that after I put out last week's video, I got a bunch of comments, recommendations from you guys, and several of them were for Sherry Bomb World Whiskeys. And I thought, why don't we just make that a video in itself? So, you know, world whiskeys that are Sherry Bombs. That's fun. So if you like heavily sherried whiskeys, this list is going to be for you. As I just said, I can't cover everything, so if you've got more suggestions, you can throw those down below in the comments. As usual, guys, I've got my mystery pour in the glass here. This is a very sherried whiskey. It's also very budget-friendly whiskey. Didn't quite make it onto the list, but I did want to include it as a mystery pour, so make sure you stick around after the list and I'll let you know what that is. And that's all our bases covered. Let's jump into our list. In the meantime, if you'll kindly leave a like down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. Alright, so kicking off our list, I wanted to start with something local. As many of you know, I live here in Taiwan, and I've got a Taiwanese whiskey for you guys. This one is from the Nantou Distillery, and it's the Omar Sherry Cask release. The thing about this one, though, is that it's easy for me to recommend from here in Taiwan, where it's ubiquitous, it's very easy to find, and it's very affordable. I think it's about 30 US, like 25 pounds, and it's worth every penny of that. I know they're charging more in other markets. It's sold in the UK for more than double that price. I think it's around $60 in the US, so it's going to be more where you are, potentially. It's still a very good whiskey, and it is one worth trying. Oh, and another thing of note, I think in parts of Europe, this isn't even sold under the Nantou brand. I believe they're selling it under Yusan, and I'm not sure if it's exactly the same product or something similar, but I've heard it's the same. Don't hold me to that. Either way, if you can get your hands on it, it's a beautiful whiskey. It's very sherry forward. The casks have been very active, but it's not over the top sweet. We have some beautiful richness, a fair amount of complexity, and yeah, it's just a solid classic sherried profile. So it's one to check out if you can find it for a fair price. Comes in at number 5, Nantou or Yusan, depending on your market. Next up, coming in at number 4, I've got an English whiskey for you guys. I'm going with the Cotswolds Sherry Cask. Now, this is one I only got to try quite recently, and I didn't have a full bottle. I only had a little sample bottle, but I enjoyed it. It was nice whiskey. It's very sherry forward. This is one where it's not an old whiskey. You are going to detect a little bit of youth in there, but it's good. It's not off-putting. This stuff comes out every year in batches, and apparently sometimes they're using Oloroso casks, sometimes they're using PX casks. So they're not going for consistency, which is fine. The sherry in this is both sweet and spicy, and this whiskey comes in a cask strength, so it is quite punchy. And speaking more broadly, Cotswolds is making some interesting whiskey. Whether it's Sherry Bombs or not, Cotswolds is a big up-and-comer on the English whiskey scene. I haven't tried much from them, but from what I've tried so far, very interesting. This is a good one. Keep an eye out for it. It comes in at number 4, Cotswolds Sherry Cask. Next up at number 3, I've got an Indian whiskey that I want to recommend to you guys. And initially I was going to go for an Amrut. They had a release called the Intermediate Sherry that was beautiful stuff, but it's been discontinued. Luckily, there are plenty of sherry-forward alternatives on the Indian whiskey scene, and I'm going with the Paul John Oloroso Select Cask. Now, if you have a sweet tooth and you want to try the PX cask release, I've tried that one too. It's very good. Personally, I tend to prefer Oloroso, so that's the one I'm recommending. Paul John, I don't think it's a brand I've ever reviewed here on the channel, but it is a brand that I like, and they are making some really interesting whiskeys. And this one here is just a classic sherry forward kind of profile. We get stuff like dark chocolate, we get oranges, we get spices, the works. It's not a cask strength expression, but it does give us a generous ABV of 48%. So it's got some nice heft to it. And yeah, it's just delicious stuff. It's worth checking out if you can find it. Comes in at number 3, Paul John Oloroso Select Cask. Okay, so we're at the number 2 spot now, and this one's going to take us back to England. And for this one, I wasn't sure what I wanted to go with. I was considering recommending something from the English Whiskey Company because they do have some beautiful, very sherry-forward whiskeys, but they can be hard to come by, and they tend to be put out in very small batches, so I kind of hesitated on that one. Ultimately, I landed on a recommendation from the Lakes Distillery, and this one is their Whiskey Maker's Reserve. This stuff comes out in batches. I believe batch 6 is the most recent batch, and that's the only batch of this stuff that I've tried so far, but I really did enjoy it. And the thing about this stuff, though, is that it's not a sherry bomb in the strictest sense of the word. The casks here are dominated by sherry, but they're not limited to sherry. Basically, we do have a lot of sherry casks in here. We've got both Oloroso and PX in the mix, but we've also got some red wine casks in there. Still, I would say that the profile is sherry dominated. It's very full flavored. It's very rich. We have a nice ABV here of 52%, so it's got some weight to it. Yeah, and it's just quality stuff. So it's one to check out if you get the chance. Comes in at number 2, the Lakes Whiskey Maker's Reserve. All right, so we made it to number 1, and I don't think my choice for number 1 is going to be very surprising for a lot of you. It might be a little bit predictable. As you already know, I live in Taiwan, and I love Taiwanese whiskey, and beyond that, I feel like the Taiwanese might deport me if I don't include a Kavalan somewhere on this list. So I'm going to throw the Kavalan Solist Sherry in there, and I'm not putting it at number 1 just because I live in Taiwan. It's legitimately my favorite whiskey on this list. Now, these are always cask strength single cask releases, so we can expect a fair amount of variation between them. That's always been the case for me. I've had a lot of these over the years, and no two are quite the same. And of course, you're going to have some that are better than others, but generally speaking, the standard of quality for this stuff is extremely high. This stuff is the richest, densest, fullest whiskey on this list. It's a dark whiskey. It's a heavy whiskey, brooding, if you want to get poetic about it. Unfortunately, it's quite expensive, particularly in Western markets. It's comparatively cheaper here. It usually sells for about 110 US, but I know it's going to be a lot more in most of your markets. So that's unfortunate. If you ever zip by Taiwan, this is one to definitely pick up. If you can try it at a bar, try a sample, or if you find it on sale or something, it is one to try. I had to include it on the list. I know it's expensive, guys, but it is beautiful stuff. It's a top tier sherry bomb, so it's my number 1 spot. So Kavalan Solist Sherry. All right, that's it. That's the list, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Of course, I do want to hear from you. And of course, I want to hear what suggestions you've got that would fit in this category. And this will be an interesting one because for me, world whiskey is very underexplored territory. And a lot of that has to do with access. Here in Taiwan, I don't have access to a lot of world whiskeys. There are loads of European whiskeys, American whiskeys, Australian whiskeys that I simply don't have access to. And, you know, things are changing and we're getting more and more stuff in every year. So put your recommendations down below. What are some World Whisky Sherry Bombs that I should check out if and when I get the chance? Finally, for those of you who stuck around to find out what the mystery pour is, I've got a Welsh whiskey in my glass here. This one is Penderyn Sherrywood. This stuff is very affordable, at least this is my market. It's very easy sipping. And after I put such an expensive whiskey in the number 1 slot with the Kavalan, I felt like I had to sort of make up for that. So we've got a budget sherried whiskey here. It's not a sherry bomb, but it is very sherry forward. And for the price, solid stuff. So there we go. Unique, budget friendly, Penderyn Sherrywood. Not bad stuff. Check it out. And I suppose that's it for our video today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll look forward to your comments. If you want to help out the channel, I've got the Patreon. Like, comment, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.